Real Talk with Mo, glad you could join me. CB Lifestyle and Apparel is the Wear New Mo podcast. Check me out. Real Talk with Mo, YouTube, TikTok, all that stuff. I want to get into something real quick, man. I was listening to I guess it was an interview on Apple. Uh, it comes up on the Apple, like iTunes or whatever. And it was just an interview with this guy who writes about poverty. And, it kind of was like this is for people that obviously that aren't in poverty, and how they should react. And you know he was saying stuff like, it wouldn't feel good to go into a restaurant and know that everybody's getting the living wage and all this other stuff. um, and then he started talking about government. Then he was saying about not having like polarization. Then he polarized the whole conversation, and he went to Republicans and Democrats. Anyway, so I didn't even understand that. But anyway, but he was speaking to his audience anyways. People that was go buy his book and believe his shit. So my whole thing with that is, I think and this is just my view, right? How I see it. Statistics are great when it comes to certain things, right? Statistics can tell you a lot about certain things. They give you a lot of information, stats and numbers and all this stuff too. But when it comes to like social things, um, and what I mean by that is like asking people, you know, uh, you can show me the numbers. Like if you say 25,000 a year, everybody's under poverty, is this many people, right? And that's a number that I can't really argue with, right? How you collected the statistics, I could ask about that. What you really asked, like what was the exact question, right? How did you ask it? When did you ask it? Who did you ask it to? What age and all that? You can break it down to all these different, aspects of it, to get to the number and get to those numbers. So you could do that, and I wouldn't have a problem with that either. Um, but the only thing I would say is, sometimes when you get into these statistics and you start to use them a lot with the social one, especially when you're asking people questions, right? You're asking people, what do you think about this, or who is this, or whatever is that, and you could be in one city or another city, and what I mean, things are different in different cities. Just like with poverty rate, right? The what you call it, a um, a living wage, right? A living wage in New York is not a living wage in Florida, right? So it wouldn't be, you couldn't do a broad stroke of the pen and make everybody a living wage. Then what is a living wage, right? How much? So I think when the statistics, you got to look at reality too. Like a lot of these people that come out of college, they come up with these statistics. Most of these people, and they're smart people, they never lived in the real world yet, right? They've been living behind their desk in their dorm, studying, looking at numbers, breaking down the numbers, this and that, but they haven't been in the real world, right? Maybe, and even their parents didn't put them in the real world, so they never been in the real world. They haven't really seen what life is like, right? They haven't been around, driving around, see people going to work, see people at work, right? Seeing people living, in poverty, what stuff like that. And even that part, right? The number for poverty is 20,000 for three people or something. My thing is, and they said there's 11%, these are the numbers I looked up, 37 million people. My thing is, this number, it could be, the way you balance it is kind of, I mean, the way it sounds is kind of weird to me because, even at minimum wage, right? We'll say $8 an hour, right? You make 20,000 for 40-hour day, 40-hour work week, right? You make 20. If you had two people making, you make 40, right? And again, these statistics is what I look at when I push the reality because, get married before you have kids, right? The three ways the Brooklyn Institute says to stay out of poverty is to graduate high school, uh, get a full-time job, and don't have kids after you're married, or get married before you have kids. Those are three ways to stay out of poverty. You do those three things, 85% chance that you will stay out of poverty. If you don't do 85% or something like that percent chance that you will be in poverty. So when you look at those, like those numbers would already kill the statistics, right? For the most part. And if it's you're talking about people in poverty, you'd have to go to age too, which I didn't get into that detail. But kids under 20 years old making $20,000. I mean, I don't know if that's all calculated, but if that isn't, we're just saying these are adults, right, that are making under 20 grand and living in poverty, you know, if they're single, that's one thing. If they're married, that's another thing. Um, I think that can. So I think that, see, what I'm saying about the numbers is you got to use common sense too, and use some common. You got to use some common sense when you're looking at the numbers, right? Because just because you say like 37%, 37 million people are in poverty, 11% of the population, right, out of 330 million. 11% is not a huge number. I, I don't know what number you would like to get it to, because there's still going to be people making bad decisions that are going to end up in poverty, and that's just reality of human beings, right? People are going to make really bad decisions, really bad investments, and you don't want any type of consequences for that, I guess, in the utopian world where you make a bad decision, you have to suffer the bad consequences. And I think that's not possible, and it's not something that in a free society, and especially with capitalism as well, you're going to be able to avoid that, right? So, you know, and then you got people that want to argue against capitalism too. So that's a whole nother topic. But what I'm saying is, like, I think people need to, when you see the statistics are great, but I think you also need to use common sense, use your brain, get out into the real world, meet real people, see what's going on. Because these people that talk about poverty never met anybody in poverty. If they did, they met somebody that said they were in poverty, and they don't even know if they're really in poverty, right? These people will say anything for a interview. They'll say anything to be talking now and get on TV and say whatever they want to say, but you don't really know. Like, if you don't go to the hood and see, or you go to the trailer park and see people living under poverty, then you'll get the gist of what's really going on. Because like I said, $7 an hour will still get you at 20 grand. So I don't know how in a household of three you're at 20 grand. I just don't see that. In some places, and like I said, that $7 an hour is not gonna get you anywhere in New York. But even if they have $15 minimum wage, you know what I mean? That's double. That's like 40 grand, 80 grand together, right? And I don't know if you can really live in New York, but again, that's going to something else, which is housing, you know, and New York is known for, you know, not having good housing. So I just want to say, you know, I think people, when you see statistics, you see people spitting out shit, look for yourself, use some common sense at what you see around in your surroundings too, right? Because they're getting statistics from your surroundings, right? The way they get to the number is they question people around you, right? And if they questioned you, and then they get to this number. But so it's not, they're using, so when people say, oh, it's just where you live, no, I'm saying that's where they're getting the number from too. You think they're going to a different place? You think they're going to somewhere else? They going to people around me too. And if I've been around everywhere, I've been all over, bro. I've been to Chicago, New York, you know, LA, Texas, uh, Minnesota, Seattle. I've been all up and down Florida. Like, I live here my whole life. Miami, where, you know, it's hot, you know, higher end. Everything is, you know, condos are $1 million type of thing. I've seen it all. And I've seen people that live in the hood, right? In most of these places. And so I see it. And then I use the statistics, and I'm like, all right, I can see that, how that's the thing, right? I can see, like, you know, it's a lot of single moms out, right? So I can see these numbers, and I can see it, and I use common sense to find it. If you're just going off statistics and then you arguing about statistics, you're going to end up, you know, not sounding like realistic. You're not going to sound like you're in the world. That's all I'm saying, man. Use your brain, use your common sense. If you have some, if not, you need to get some.